Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Thanks for joining me today in this demonstration on how we use Fusion Lifecycle to improve supplier workflows inside a company. We'll focus on the common process of RFQs, or requests for quotes, and how it can be automated and tracked in a common system. Going forward, I'll use some terms interchangeably. PLM, or product lifecycle management, is the overarching way product data is maintained in an organization. FLC, or Fusion Lifecycle, is Autodesk product that we use to achieve that. Fusion Lifecycle has been renamed Fusion 360 Manage this past week, so you may inadvertently hear me switch between Manage and Fusion Lifecycle just as a matter of habit, but I'll try to focus on using Manage from here on out. Let's start with introductions. My name is Jeremy Smith. I'm a mechanical engineer and solution consultant here at Imagine It. My focus is PLM and system integrations, and I have 20 years or so of product design and manufacturing experience with stints in water treatment, ozone generation, architectural lighting, and commercial restaurant equipment. I've also spent some time in software, making websites, programming.net, and systems administration in Amazon Web Services. The common thing across these endeavors is that I got to use technology to create solutions that help companies improve their business processes. In fact, this is where currently PLM, what I'm doing now with PLM and Manage, really shine, and that Manage can be used to create workflows and approvals for a variety of business needs, not just engineering, which leads us to today's agenda. I'll start by quickly telling you a bit about Imagine It and Autodesk. I'll lay out the problem we're hoping to solve and how Manage can be used to solve it. And then we'll jump into the software itself, and I'll run through two solutions we created to improve the RFQ process that every manufacturing company has some form of. I'd actually argue that most companies, not just manufacturing companies, have an RFQ process, and it could be disjointed no matter the industry. Finally, after that, I'll take any questions, and hopefully we'll finish up around the 45-minute mark. Imagine It Technologies is an Autodesk Platinum partner with 40-something locations and over 400 employees. I myself have been with the company going on 2 years, and we focus on using technology to solve problems across a variety of industries, as well as training users in those applications. Basically, if you make, design, or build something, we can help. Here's a few tidbits about Autodesk. I'll be using their 360 Manage application, which, using its API, can connect to Vault and interact with a lot of their other applications like AutoCAD, Revit, or Fusion 360. This is an overview of the what I call the order to cash process in a manufacturing company and where PLM fits in. Everyone is doing PLM in this type of company, even if they don't have a PLM system. It's usually spreadsheets, folders, and emails. However, having a PLM software functions as a single source of truth for products and the parts and documents that make them up. In general, PLM systems span across the entire product life cycle, from upstream sales to downstream aftermarket service. It can also connect other systems, SaaS-based or even locally hosted platforms like CRMs and ERPs. And since so many departments rely on this info, Manage is highly customizable and really excels at automating these workflows and the data related to them. It helps break down the silos and keeps everyone current on all the moving pieces. While Manage is used from everything from NPI to quality management, Today, we will focus on this section right here, the supplier collaboration part of product development. So what problem are we solving? Basically this problem laid out right here in this slide. Traditionally, there's a heavy reliance on Microsoft Excel and emails for tracking and communicating RFQs. Sometimes pen and paper is still used for approvals, which, given COVID now, it isn't possible and probably won't be anywhere in the near future. Does this flow look familiar to you? It's one I've seen a lot in my history. It goes something like this, where sales gets a customer request for a new part or customization of an existing part. It goes to the engineering manager, who delegates it to an engineer. At that point, the engineer uses CAD to design the part, PDFs it, and attaches it to an email to supply chain, since they usually don't have access to CAD or the PDM system itself. Procurement, or a supply chain, or purchasing, whatever you may want to call it, works up an RFQ in some form, PDFs it, and attaches it in multiple emails to one or more suppliers. The supplier then uses their own internal system to work up a quote, which is then emailed back to procurement, who usually forwards it back to engineering. And then the cycle starts and could iterate multiple times over multiple revisions before finally being released to production. At any stage in this process, there's multiple copies of the drawing and the RFQ sitting in network folders, or worse yet, hard drives. And this right here doesn't even include the phone calls and verbal conversations that happen that just become tribal knowledge and never get documented. Let me show you how Manage can improve this. At this point, I will bring up a web browser. Here we go. Just refresh. So Fusion 360 Manage is a cloud-based platform that, if it ever loads, will be logged into in a web browser, and anywhere you have access, internet access, you can gain access to it. This is the landing page that when you log in, you land on, which has a dashboard and KPI type feel to it. Manage itself is made up of workspaces, with common workspaces being, parts and BOMs, documents, ECOs, and document change orders. Today, we're going to focus on supply chain type workspaces, particularly the RFQ internal and the RFQ external. I'm going to start with the internal. It's internal because in this scenario, outside vendors don't have access to the system. There aren't licenses available for them. However, we can still run an RFQ and aggregate the data in an efficient way with this. This is a list of current RFQs that are out and the state that they're in. I will start by making a new one. Make sure we have everything lined up here. So in this case, I'm wearing my hat as Jeremy Smith, the engineer, who needs a quote on this capacitor, let's say. Jeremy Smith, the engineer, is the originator of this, and it's for our new project that we're working on. We'll say in this particular case, it's our new demo project. And like most priorities, it's always high. And then we have a team also. I'll save this. Assigns an RFQ number, and what the team does is helps pre-populate an available pool of procurement or purchasers who are responsible for RFQs. This over here is the workflow that the RFQ process goes through. You can see I just originated it. and there's a number of transitions or steps, actions that I can do depending on the state that it's in. Right now, there's only the one to send out the internal request to that pool of team members. So if I try to do that right now and say, okay, I need this quote, I do get a warning saying, oh, hey, you need at least one attachment to help these guys know what you actually want quoted. Since I forgot that, I'll go in here to my attachments. And upload this data sheet for the capacitor that I want. So here's the specification and the cut sheet that I'm looking for. So I'll go back now that I have that attached. I should be able to send this request over to procurement, which it did, and advance the workflow. So it's been requested internally, and at which point any of those individuals can return it for more information or take it up. So what happens at this stage is actually all of the members in here get an email saying, hey, Jeremy needs an RFQ. Can one of you guys take this and help him out? So now I'll put on my my procurement hat, since I have to be the one to advance this. But now I log in as Jeremy Smith in procurement and say, okay, I'll take this one. I'm responsible for capacitors, and I'm going to send this quote to ABO and Abercon. They're my two suppliers for these. And I'm looking to have them quote 100, 500, and let's say 1,000 quantity. You know, we can have some ancillary information about this, like if it's a new vendor, if they need to sign an NDA, any notes about the quote, and you know, the templated terms and conditions that you may want to go along with every email to go to these vendors or suppliers. I'll save that. Again, this is me coming in as Jeremy. I'll quickly show what the email looks like. Yeah, so this would be the email I'd get saying, hey, Jeremy requested an RFQ with links to go right in to start to continue that process and that workflow. So now that I'm here, I go back to my workflow actions, and I've completed the supplier info at this point. Make sure I did. Yep, I just needed to fill out the MOQs. There's no other information here. And I'll say, okay, supplier info is complete. At this stage, it's sitting here. It still hasn't been sent to the suppliers because this is the internal process where they don't have access to the system. In this particular scenario, I would go out and via emails or phone calls or whatever, request these RFQs from the suppliers. Once I've done that and I've sent out this RFQ with all the information, I can say it's been sent to the suppliers. And I'm waiting for the responses to get back to them. This is what's good about this internal process, is that it's still, even though it goes outside the system, it still creates this tab, which is a centralized location to aggregate the data that you get back. So while I'm sitting here waiting for my vendors to respond, I have a place where I can record that info as they come back so that everyone has access to it in real time. So as ABO and Abercon write back to me, I'll come in here and say, okay, they gave me quote 1, 2, 3, 4, and they gave me quote 5, 6, 7. They quoted me $1.50, $1, and should be 1,000 there, but it's 100 MLQ. I mistyped that, but say 75 cents here. These guys came in at $1.25, also $1.65. So here, this is again an aggregation and a summary of the quotes that came in. You know, if you had tooling costs, they could be in here, and setup costs, and also you know additional notes that the vendor might have relayed during this, like 14-week lead time or something like that. At this point, I'll actually edit this again once everyone has replied, and I'll decide to award it to the lowest cost quote, and I'll save it. So here, I'm no longer waiting for responses. I've had all my responses. So we'll complete this RFQ. At this stage, an email has gone out to the originator saying, hey, your RFQ's done. Everyone's responded, and I can put my hat back on as Jeremy Smith, the engineer, and come here and get the info that I need to start making make the engineering decision and BOM decisions that I need to make with this capacitor, start to release it for production. And it also, at this lock shows that it locks down this RFQ, so it can't be changed from here forward. We can't be changing the cost. It's locked in time, and it's good information that everyone can rely upon. I believe that does it for the internal RFQ process. Just quickly show the last tab here is the change log, a very nice breadcrumb trail of everything that's happened to this workflow. Nice history and audit purposes. You have your quotes and your item details. Final thing I'll point out with this and across all of Fusion 360 Manage is the nice relationship interconnection between these. So right from here, you can look at the item itself that's been quoted or the project that it's being quoted for, and also any of the team members, any of the suppliers, information on the supplier. Right from here, if I wanted to, I could go there and get their phone number and address or anything else that may be recorded for that supplier. Here, it's not much information for them because it's text data, but it would be here, all at your fingertips. I will now move on to the more advanced RFQ process we created for customers who have licenses available for their vendors and close enough relationships where they want to allow access to their tenant for their suppliers and vendors. So here we'll use the RFQ external process. Similarly, you'll see all the existing RFQs that are in the system and their states. One thing I should point out here is that actually, if you go back to the home, the KPI dashboard that you land on, not only does this process send emails to help communicate where these workflows are in their states, if you're one of the people responsible and have an action that needs to be done, it shows up here in your outstanding work. So you can actually see that you have me, Jeremy Smith, as the procurement employee. I have these RFQs that I'm waiting on supplier info for, or waiting to close out these RFQs. It's nice to have quick access to that, so you can get your outstanding work done right here. But going back here, we'll do a similar process to what we did before. It starts off similarly, but then branches, and I'll walk through how that happens. Here we'll quote the same capacitor. Quickly go through this because the first bit of info is the same. I'm Jeremy Smith, the engineer, requesting it for our new demo project, and again, priority is always high. And here I'll pick a team. So here, filled out the pre-populated team members, has similar fields. You notice there's a couple new ones, and I'll get into those. But this time I'm also not going to forget to add my attachment. So I have my attachment in. We're good to go. I'm ready to send this off to my team. So it's been requested internally. You can see the emails have been coming in and going across departments. I'll jump in here, put on my procurement hat, and I'll take this RFQ. I will edit it. This case, wait for it to load a little bit. There we go. Again, I'll send this one to ABO. We'll do a similar 100. We'll do 500. And this time I'll make sure it's 1,000. Here down in the notes, I'll say need in 2 weeks. Give it a save. Here, I'll make sure that I'm pretty sure, I'll double check when my supplier info is complete before I send this on. Yes, it is. Here, supplier info is complete. So here's where this branches compared to the internal process. In this case, it goes here to a waiting for responses state. If I go back to the details, this workflow has actually created quotes in a separate workspace called Supplier Quote. Open that up in another tab called Supplier Quotes. So for every supplier that was added here, they get their own quote created in the system. And when they log in, let me show this as this loads. Down here, you'll see that they are an additional owner, ABO, for this quote. So whatever users from ABO have licenses in this system and are part of this group for the supplier, when they log into the system, they'll only see their quotes that they can work in the workflow in this system. Again, the nice relationships are linked here. A link back to the RFQ, because again, this is a different supplier quotes workspace and a different supplier quote with its own number. A link to the item that needs to be quoted, the requester, supplier. So now I have an email. I am now wearing my third hat. I'm Jeremy Smith at ABO. I'm a supplier. I get the email saying, hey, there's a request for a quote. Can you, do you want to quote this? I'll log into the system to this tenant, come in, and I'll see these workflow actions that I have available to me. I can say, hey, this is a great quote, but I need more information, at which point this loop will go back to the RFQ and let the originator and procurement know that they need more info. Or I can say, hey, this isn't for us, we'll no bid this one. But in this case, obviously, we'll quote this as ABO. It's a good job for us. So I am now in here, logged in, and I will fill out. We've quoted this for you. We'll quote this as 6789. Why not? This is the MOQ they're looking for. I know my cost for this is $5, $3, make it easy, and $1. Lead time is 2 days on each, and something we can only provide black color only, something like that. Again, you can have one-time setup costs, one-time fees and setup costs. Terms go back as part of the quote. My own ABO terms that are important to me are all available here. So I have filled out my information, and I'll say this quote is complete. At this stage, an email goes out to procurement. It says, hey, all your quotes have been completed. It's time to award the quote or reject the quote for each of your suppliers that you sent this to. So switching my hats yet again, I'm logged in as Jeremy from procurement. I take a look at the quote here. I think it looks pretty good. This is good cost for me. And I'll give it to ABO. They're a good vendor. So I will award the quote to them. This point, this workflow for this quote has been completed. Here's what's pretty slick is if we go back to the RFQ itself, give a refresh, and look at the workflow actions, this automatically moved from waiting for responses to complete. There was no need for manual transition for that because it knew that the RFQ had been awarded. And this fires off all the appropriate transitions and communications to the stakeholders who need to know that info. Oh, almost missed this part. This is the, so the last part of this is once this is done, you'll see that there is actually the quotes created and then a view report. So I can go in here and get a nice summary of every supplier, the RFQ that they quoted, the item that they quoted, and a summary of their quotes and who actually got it awarded. So it's a one place for all your aggregation for this particular RFQ in this case. Pretty nice there. So that I think that summarizes the two things we created, the two solutions we created for our customers that we found really helped them in automating and getting this possibly disjointed process under control and in a common location, like we said, as a master source of truth that everyone can go and look at to see real-time data. Cut down on the emails, cut down on the PDFs, and really just get things streamlined.